Welcome back. Well, yesterday's video raised an unexpected topic. It showed up in the comments, and frankly, the thing that is most unexpected about this is why it hasn't come up sooner, because it's a major issue, especially for women in my generation, and which is to say, over 50. And that is setting boundaries. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the need for boundaries, how to set them, and how to enforce them. So when we come back. Well, for most of us in my generation, we not only didn't have the opportunity to learn to set boundaries, we were pretty much told from the get-go that we were not entitled to boundaries. If I went into my brother's room when I was a little kid, grabbed one of his toys and ran off with it, he went up and told my mother that she's got my toy. My mother would look at him and say, you go right after her. You say, give me back my toy, and you stay out of my bedroom. He would do it. It didn't work, but that didn't stop him. So, yeah. On the other hand, if he went into my bedroom, took one of my toys, and I went to my mother and took my toy, her response was, will you please look around and see how many toys you have? He's not keeping this toy forever. Why don't you just let him play with the toy for a little while and not make such a big fuss over it? You really need to learn to be better about sharing. That's what happened, because I was a girl, and it was my job to be the peacemaker. It was my job to let my brother have what he wanted, because after all, boys will be boys. It was the 1950s. We had huge double standards. If my brother got angry with me, my mother would just laugh it off with that whole boys will be boys. Well, he's a little temperamental, isn't he? If I got angry with him, she would look at me and say, you need to go make up with your brother. Do you plan to be angry with him for the rest of your life? Well, I'm 5 years old. Yeah, that was my plan. I was not only going to be angry with him, I was going to chain him up in the backyard, pour honey on him, and feed him to the ants. I was 5. No. My job, I needed to go be the peacemaker. Go tell him you're sorry. Not sorry, I didn't do anything. Tell him you're sorry anyway. That's how we were socialized. So that we were the ones whose boundaries slipped and slid. Wasn't our brothers, it was us. And that was normal for the 1950s. That was just the standard. Now, healthy personal boundaries are important because our boundaries tell us where we end and someone else begins. And that is especially important because today, especially if you are a young woman, you are expected to be, a wife, a mother, a career person. In the post-COVID universe, you're expected to be a school teacher. The amount of hats we have to wear is staggering. And without some good, healthy boundaries, we can just get swallowed up. So what I thought we would do, and now keep in mind, this is setting boundaries is an entire college semester course. All right. So what I'm giving you here is the haiku version. However, because I'm not a big believer in haiku education. Yeah, Cliff Notes have their place, but not here, not in my universe. I've also found an online resource that has a course outline. If you feel you need it, I'm going to give you a link. You download it. It's a PDF, so obviously you can download it, keep it on your computer or your smartphone, or you can print it out, take a hard copy, and wander around with it. Well worth taking a look at, because we're lousy at setting boundaries, and our inability to set boundaries properly can really, it can create resentment, it can create frustration, it can have us spinning and turning and not knowing where we go next. So I'm going to hit the high points, because I think for many of us, this is probably all we need, just a few guidelines. For some of us, oh yeah, download that whole course. Take a good hard look at it, especially if you are in a situation in which people are reluctant to respect the boundaries you set. You may need a little extra help. It's there for you. So let's start with what you need to do. Now there is, we've got a sort of a 5-part process. First thing you need to do is you need to set your boundaries. Decide what they are. What are the boundaries I need to make me feel comfortable? So, give you a real world example. Let's say your mother-in-law drops by unannounced all the time. She's off with her Red Hat Society ladies and they're gallivanting around, and she's like, let's stop in on the kids. All right, that stopped being cute the 3rd time. We all know this. So how do you deal with this? Well, you have to look at what it is you want to deal with first. You don't want to get your mother-in-law out of your life, unless this is a toxic relationship you really do need to get rid of. But, I would say that could be dicey. All you really want to do is stop this one behavior. So it's important to identify the behavior. And it's not her visits, it's not her coming over, it's not her calling, it's these unexpected visits. So be clear about where you're drawing that line. And that line is not Sunday dinners, it's not the kids' birthdays, it's not holiday gatherings, it's not the 4th of July family picnic. It's the unexpected, unannounced visits. When she comes over and the house is a mess and you're busy cleaning and whatever. Okay? So set your boundaries, identify them. Then the next thing, this is part 2, clearly communicate the boundaries. Now, when you are explaining your boundaries to someone, keep the conversation about you. Mom, I need the time to clean my house. It's Saturday and that's when I do this. So I really need you to just give me a quick call before you stop by. Ask me if I've got anything on. That's what I need to make me feel comfortable. You don't want to phrase it in terms of, you have to stop coming over. You are interrupting my cleaning. You are making me unhappy. No, because that's going to kill the conversation. So identify. It's number 1. Identify where you want to set that boundary. 2, communicate. Keep it about you and your feelings. This is what I need for my emotional well-being. It's that simple. Because this is not about accusing your mother-in-law of doing something. Some people might love that. It's just something that you don't need in your life. So keep that in mind. Keep it about you. So keep it simple. Yes, baby. When you are talking to somebody about a boundary, this is what I need for my peace of mind. This is what I need for my emotional well-being. You do not need to go into an elaborate explanation. Elaborate explanations are actually counterproductive because there is a certain percentage of people out there who are just natural-born problem solvers. Guilty. And if you say, this is my problem, I need to clean my house and get my kids ready for school, their first reaction is going to be, I will help you. It's because that's how they were raised. And that's not where we want to take this conversation. Remember, you need to control the conversation. And the best way you can control it is to keep it simple. Don't let it go off track. So, Mom, I need that phone call before you visit for me and my emotional well-being. And don't go into I don't want you to see the dirty underwear on the floor because I haven't done the laundry, blah, 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 blah. Let it go. That's not where this conversation needs to go. Also, there need to be some consequences. If you draw a line in the sand, the person for whom you are drawing that line, for whom you are setting that boundary, needs to know what happens if they don't respect it. Mom, if I can't have that phone call when you come by, I'm not going to be able to spend time with you. And hopefully Mom is clever enough to realize this means she's going to get a door slammed in her face. Now, I know you don't want to do that, and that's not exactly, obviously you're not going to push your old mother-in-law out in the street and say, darken not my doorway again, foul beast. No. But if she comes by without calling again, say, Mom, I'm sorry, I can't visit with you now. I'll call you later and we'll set something up. I'll see you later, and you just walk her right back out the door again. Because there have to be consequences. That's number 4. And number 5, you have to enforce them. So, a lot of times, we're very good about saying, if this doesn't happen, that will happen. We set up the consequence, but when push comes to shove, we won't see it through. If you do not respect my boundaries, I will. And then we won't. Because, of course, that just seems confrontational and it just seems so aggressive, especially to our generation of women. But remember, we have to do this. We have to create our little envelope of space. Your life stops here, your mother-in-law's life starts here, and there's got to be a line in between the two. They can't be melting in back and forth. Now, for some people, it's coworkers who are calling all evening long. They want to discuss work. You're at home, you're with your family, you don't want to do that. Same thing. You have to be able to say, I'm sorry, Sally, I can't talk about this right now. I'll talk to you about this at the office tomorrow. You have to be comfortable saying no. And most of us are not. That's confrontational. That's unpleasant. People's feelings get hurt. They just want to visit with you. How can you turn them away? They just want to talk to you on the phone or whatever it is they want. That just doesn't seem like such a big deal. But it does become a big deal because after a while we start getting resentful about it. Um, I know for me, and I'm just going to throw in a personal, um, I have a lot of trouble with the fact that I need to make YouTube videos. And especially during the period of COVID when I was making so many, I had a period that I would set aside in the afternoons. I turned my phone off. I locked my door, but I couldn't stop people from coming by anyway. Still happened. And it was very, very hard for me to set those boundaries, especially because people don't take this this is YouTube. They don't take it seriously. This seems like entertainment to them. So, I had a hard time and I had to work on that. So please understand, when I say I know it's hard to say no, it's because this is my generation too. I know. So let's take another example. You're in a long-term relationship with somebody. It's a spouse, it's a boyfriend, it's whatever. And when I am focusing this on women, because like I say, my brother figured out how to do this when he was 4 years old. Yeah, I was the one who was denied the boundary lesson. But still, there are a lot of men who have difficulty doing this. It applies to everyone across the board, so don't feel left out if I'm talking about a male spouse instead of a female spouse. So he's digging in your handbag. And he's been digging in your handbag for 30 years. And this is not uncommon, by the way. A lot of us will have these little things that have been going on in our lives for a long time, and it's sort of like a simmer on the back burner. Every once in a while, it'll boil over, simply because that handbag is our private space, and we do not want Ray Bob digging in there. It's not because we're hiding condoms so we can go see our boyfriends or whatever, It's just because it's personal space. There's just stuff in there that's ours. In my case, it's dirty Kleenex. By the way, this is a great excuse. Do you ever want an excuse to keep someone out of your handbag? Well, I was downtown. I was blowing my nose. There was nowhere to throw the dirty Kleenex, so I put it in my handbag. So, if you want my boogers on your fingers, you just go right into that handbag, why don't you? But seriously, there are things in our lives, little areas where we want the boundaries have been shunted aside over the years. And we need to put those boundaries back in place. Things like, I would prefer you not go into my handbag. It's one way to say it. I would prefer, if you want something from my handbag, you ask me, because, and here's the thing, because, you have to give them some explanation. I view that as my private space. Remember, we keep it about us. I view that as my private space. We're not saying, I view you as an interloper crawling in my handbag to steal my hard-earned wages, because we all know that's not what it's about. It's just sort of an abstract notion of this is my private space. Now, privacy in that sense is a factor. Because remember, we were talking about 5-year-old kids, and little boy gets one thing, little girl gets another. Well, move that forward 20 years. You got a 25-year-old man and a 25-year-old woman. They go off, they get married, and he has space. He's going to have a den or a garage or a workshop or a basement, somewhere he can go to retreat. Even the kids have their own rooms. Mom, no. Mom doesn't have her own space. If you are feeling that sort of, I'm blending into my family, I don't know where I stop and they start, that could be a good starting point for your boundaries. I need a little space that is mine. You wouldn't consider it unreasonable if your husband said, I need a workshop, or I need a man cave. That was the big thing a while ago. Or, I need an office to get the excess paperwork from my job done, etc. What about you? There's no reason in the world why you shouldn't have a little space that is your own. And there's no reason why it shouldn't be a dedicated space. Most of us grew up taking our little bits of space off the kitchen table or, the bedroom nightstand. It was catch as catch can. And the crazy thing is, our 4-year-old child would have had a room of their own. We didn't. We were sharing. We probably had more privacy when we were a teenager at home with mom and dad than when we first went out into the world as a young wife. At least when we were at home with mom and dad, a lot of us had our own bedroom. Think about that. All right, so 5 points in boundary setting. We have to identify that boundary and set it. No one can do that but you. It's where you feel comfortable. We have to communicate that boundary to other people. Remember, I feel, I need, I want. Keep it about you. Make it simple. Long, involved explanations simply invite discussion. And they virtually invite people to go in and say, no, you really don't need that. This is not up for discussion. This is not asking someone else's opinion. It's not. So, keep it simple. No elaborate explanations. Consequences. You have to set consequences. Now, we don't need crazy consequences. It doesn't have to be, and I shall take your firstborn child and sacrifice him to the God of Moses on a mountaintop. No. Reasonable consequences. Your mother-in-law drops by unexpectedly. The consequence is going to be you're not going to visit with her, and you're just going to escort her to the door. It's that simple. You can give her 5 minutes if you want, but it's not going to be come in, sit down, have dinner. It's not going to be whatever it is she was expecting. By the way, if she was only expecting 5 minutes to say hello or whatever, then you should probably scoot her to the door sooner than 5 minutes into the process. The reason for this is there must be consequences, and if she can get what she wants by ignoring your boundaries are not working. So just bear that one in mind. Consequences have a very real purpose. We are modifying the behavior of the people around us. We are saying, to play in my sandbox, these are the rules and you must follow them. That is not dictatorial. It is not high-handed. It's simply the way life works. If you want to be in any kind of relationship with someone, you have to abide by some mutually agreed upon rules. That's the social contract. So this is why consequences are very important. And you must enforce the consequences. That is going to be a hard part for a lot of us. But remember, a consequence is meaningless. There's nothing to it at all if you are not prepared to stand behind it. If you are not prepared to walk your mother-in-law to the door when she drops by unexpectedly, if you are not prepared to say, I'm sorry, Sally, I've got to go, goodbye, when your coworker calls up and wants to discuss work on your private time, if you are not prepared to say, Jim Bob, I'm not going to be happy. Why? We didn't set a consequence for that, did we? Well, whatever the consequence for prowling around in your handbag, I would say on that one, by the way, just as a brief digression, I would say that one is probably the easiest of all because the consequence is right in front of you. I am uncomfortable when you dig around in my handbag, and it makes me very irritable. For most men, an irritable wife is a consequence. But also, keep in mind, most men have been raised with boundaries. I'd really prefer you not go into my handbag. I'd really prefer you ask me if there's something you want in my handbag. 9 times out of 10, Jim Bob is just going to look at you and say, okay, walk out the door. That's one that will resolve itself, I'm sure, a lot easier than you expect. But you have to be prepared to enforce the consequence, even if you have to sit in front of a mirror and practice. All right, so this is the overview of setting boundaries. I know for a lot of you, this is probably going to be enough to get you started. For others, you might want more. Well, I've got a link. This link is, I found this course book online. I couldn't believe my luck. And it's actually good. This is, that's the other thing. Usually these things, I'll go through them and it's like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like the references. This one's pretty good. For those of you who want a little more, go to the link in this video. Download that course book, PDF version. Everybody has Adobe Acrobat on their computers or their smartphones. You will be able to process this. It's not a weird file format. Take a look at it. It should be whatever this is to get you started. If you need more, of course we'll do it for you. All right. Have a terrific day. I hope you noticed Audie's been here with me. He's sleeping behind me right now. He rather likes it here. I will see you all tomorrow. Meantime, let's get some of those boundaries set. Later.